You could be concerned about the patient experience being affected, but what you will see here, which is a credit to all of you and our team, is that the patient experience here was best in state. Absolutely amazing. When you consider that across the sector and the specialist hospitals in a general sense do better than others, compared to all our competitors, Peter Mac had the best patient-reported experience, which is probably the most important measure of our service delivery and a really important reflection of the care and compassion with which the staff here look after our patients. Safety and quality remains a number one priority. With all of that extra work, all of that pressure, all of that demand, these surveillance measures are often the things we look at to make sure that we're continuing to provide high quality care. And I'm delighted to say that all those measures have been stable, if not improving, throughout the entire year. And the Quality Committee and the leadership team are really committed to making sure we maintain the highest standard of safety and quality across every service. So, how did we do that? And I know that anyone involved in the operational team will reflect on the year that was, and those who have been around the table would know that we had a strategy which we called Project 104, and that was very much set at the time when we knew we had to turn around our activity levels in order to remain competitive. There was a few key things in that. It was around understanding our activity, making sure we coded correctly, making sure that we captured the activity that we were doing so that we were funded for the efforts we were putting in, making sure that our length of stay was a focus so that we could maintain access for patients as much as we could, improving our theatre efficiency through our surgical programs, and also a much stronger focus on business intelligence, recognising that for us to be able to make good decisions, for us to have the information we need business intelligence systems with accurate data at our fingertips so we can make the right decisions and progress the business. Delighted to say that it's work in progress. I think we'd be foolish to say that everything's fixed and it's all under control. It's never going to be fixed. It's a piece of work that never ends. But that focus has really delivered some amazing outcomes. I will call on a few key things around improvements. The 8-bed short stay unit was set up in the last financial year. And it was only last week I was talking to the 23-hour team downstairs, and they were reflecting on their achievements in the 12 months that they've been open. The ability to mix the surgical medical model, the acuity, the high turnover is truly remarkable of what they've achieved in the first 12 months, and the dividends are really paying. The admin review, which I'm sure many of you are probably aware of or heard of, has been difficult and challenging, but the focus on setting up a medical workforce unit, a billing team, improving our tumour stream support, and also patient navigators will absolutely set us up to have a system that can support our care needs and make sure that our clinical teams have the administrative team members to help make that job easier. I've talked about business intelligence. I'd also like to talk about our RAD-ONC service strategy. There's been a lot of focus in our radiation oncology service to understand how we can grow our service and make sure that our 5 campuses have a clear strategy going forward. There's been just over $18 million of capital investment to refresh our radiation oncology camp services in the last 12 months, going through to the next 12 months. So that's 4 new linear accelerators, the new treatment planning system, which is going to be a fantastic addition to our 5 campuses, and the Mosaic upgrade, which is now the next thing we're looking at. That investment in radiation oncology will well and truly position our service to be able to really grow and continue to be the preeminent provider across Victoria and Australia. I'd also call out the amazing work that the haematology team have done in the last 12 months. Many of you would be aware of the review that was undertaken, the external review. Lots of challenges and complex issues in bringing together 2 clinical teams from 2 organisations. The change management challenges that presents are not small and are not straightforward. And the leadership there have done a phenomenal job to work through the operational and strategic challenges that service presents, to the point where now we're able to quite proudly reflect on how far that service has come and prove that the integrated model really is a wonderful way for the precinct to progress. And then, of course, not to suggest this one is completed, but the Connecting Care program, our EMR was funded in the last financial year, and we're only just beginning the work that you all know is ahead in the next 2 years to deliver a digital transformation here at Peter Mac and across the rest of the precinct. It's going to be transformative, it's going to be exciting, but it's going to be hard work. And so we're going to have to dig deep, but know that it will be worth it, because it will be such an amazing facilitator for world's best cancer care here in Parkville, and also research data. It's not all within the walls. Of course, there's been lots of focus on Peter Mac's role beyond Parkville, beyond our campuses, our role in making sure that the regional areas across Victoria have access to our care and our expertise. The work in telehealth, as an example, has been really, really impressive. Haematology, as well as our links with Bendigo. The number of patients that are now accessing our expertise remotely is fabulous, but not just that. The fact that they can now access some clinical trials is a wonderful model for us to grow our reach and to really partner with our services across the state to make sure everyone in Victoria and beyond can have access to the expertise here at Peter Mac. And our reach with the prevention model and some of the fantastic work that Kellyanne Phillips has been doing in trying to provide access for every woman to be able to assess their individual risk is a wonderful demonstration of the role that Peter Mac has in not only providing care but also preventing and educating across the sector. Another example, our subcutaneous immunoglobulin program. You can see some of the data there around 17% of patients within the first 3 months were able to transition onto the self-managed program. Another fabulous example of Peter Mac's role, not only in just, treating the patients that appear to us one after the other, but also investing in innovative models that can be, a wonderful way for a patient to, choose how best to receive their care and in what environment to do so. The last thing I'd like to kind of point out and to recognise is beyond our role as a world-class research facility, clinical facility and educator, we have a role in social responsibility as being part of this community. And part of that is demonstrated very well by the commitment we made to same-sex marriage and support for this community, which was well, illustrated through our support of the same-sex wedding last year. And the fact that the first marriage certificate in Victoria was this marriage, and a wonderful way for us as an organisation to send a message to the community that you are safe, we support you, cancer does not discriminate, and you are welcome here at Peter Mac. A wonderful demonstration of our social responsibility, as is the demonstration of our Indigenous partnerships. The signing of the MOU with the Victorian Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisation is another excellent demonstration of how Peter Mac understands that we have a role to help those less able to access healthcare, those who have poorer health outcomes, which is a fact. We need to working and partnering with organisations such as VACCHO so that we can make sure those who need cancer care and expertise have the ability to do so. Last thing I'd say is that I'm also very aware of the social responsibility we have as a leadership team to all of you and everyone in the Peter Mac community to make sure that this is a workplace and an environment where you feel safe, you feel rewarded, you are given the opportunity to grow and to be the best version of yourselves. And so I think it's important that we kind of state at this point the growth, the demand, the complexity, the EMR coming down the pipeline. It has been an amazing year, but it's not going to stop. There is so much coming ahead. And so as a leadership team, we're conscious of working with you to make sure we look after your well-being, we take care of each other and recognise that that together, if we can create a culture where we can all be the best versions of ourselves, then I have no doubt that Peter Mac will go from strength to strength next year. So I'll summarise by just saying a huge thank you to everybody. I haven't tried to cover everything, and Maxine will now go on and cover some more amazing achievements. But from me and the leadership team, thank you to all of you. Please pass on our congratulations and thank you for all your efforts. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce Maxine Moran, our chair. Maxine Moran was appointed to the board in June 2015 and reappointed by the Minister for Health for 3 years in June this year. Maxine is a former nurse, research scientist at the Cancer Council of Victoria, member of the Victorian Parliament and Cabinet Minister, and was Chief Executive of Breast Cancer Network Australia. Maxine is a professorial fellow and teaches in the School of Public Health and Preventative Medicine at Monash University. Thank you, Maxine.
Thanks, Nicole, and welcome everyone, welcome staff and all members of our community. And can I start by acknowledging the incredible feat of being awarded the Health Service of the Year jointly with the Alfred Hospital, and to acknowledge Nicole and all the executive and all the staff that were involved, because it's not just us saying that we're a great place and we're providing fantastic care for the community, but it's recognised by the government. So congratulations to all of you for your participation in making that happen. So give yourself that. So I would like to start by introducing and welcoming the members of the Peter Mac Board, as it is the AGM. In attendance, and a welcome to Deirdre Blythe, Kate Cherry, Louise Davidson, Ian Dunn, Jane Gunn, Matt O'Keefe and Les Retty, and apologies have been received by Des Pearson. We just have one formality to address, and may I call on confirmation of the 2017 Peter Mac AGM minutes, which have previously been distributed to Peter Mac Board of Directors. Can I hear a motion? That's Matt O'Keefe, and a seconder? Kate Cherry. Thank you very much. Those minutes are now confirmed. I'd like to sincerely thank the members of the board for their commitment and the passion and the time that they do dedicate to Peter Mac, and I know that, like me, they consider it an absolute privilege to serve on this board. Our governance functions include the highest quality and safety measures for our patients and staff, as well as obviously finance, audit and risk, community advisory, population health, and of course, world-leading research. I want to take the opportunity to thank and acknowledge our former Chief Executive, Dale Fisher, for her significant contribution to Peter Mac over the last 5 years, and indeed in the precinct for the last 15 years. And we really wish her well in her next role at Silver Chain. The board is currently right in the middle of undertaking a recruitment process for our next leader. Another significant change that occurred this year is a change in the research leadership, and this occurred when we were delighted to announce the appointment, after an international search, of Professor Ricky Johnson as Executive Director of Cancer Research. Ricky, I'm sure all of you know, has been a major contributor and a major part of Peter Mac and its success for the last 18 years. And he has received many, many significant awards and is internationally recognised in his field of study. Congratulations to you, Ricky. I know you're in the room somewhere. We look forward to your leadership in the next 5 years. We'd also like to thank Joe Trapani, who led the ED position since 2009, for his really enormous contribution to Peter Mac over that period of time, and his expanded role now in leading the Cancer Immunology Program and his recently announced leadership of the new Centre for Cancer Immunotherapy. I think there's a slide coming up on that. This is a joint initiative between Peter Mac, the University of Melbourne and the Victorian Comprehensive Cancer Centre Alliance. I also, after Nicole's comments about radiotherapy, also wanted to acknowledge and welcome that landing today, I believe, in Australia from North Belfast is our new leader of the Director of Radiation and Oncology. His name is Jerry Hanna. And as the largest provider of public radiation therapy services in Victoria, this is a really significant appointment, and we really look forward to welcoming him as part of our Peter Mac team. So, Peter Mac has led a plethora of national and international studies on the causes, the diagnosis and the treatment of all kinds of cancer. As you all know, we are the only Australian organisation combining a specialist public hospital and medical research institute with more than 2,200 staff, of which 600 are researchers and students solely dedicated to cancer. Research revenue from all sources reached $80 million last year, and that's an increase of 33% in just 2 years. It's a really significant increase in our research capability. Of this funding, we received more than $26 million from the National Health and Medical Research Council. We continue to build on collaborative partnerships and networks, both locally and internationally, to accelerate discovery and translation to the clinics. In the last 2 years, we've established 3 global industry collaborations with pharmaceutical companies: Roche Genentech, Bristol Myers Squibb, GlaxoSmithKline to support lab-based and translational research in cancer immunotherapy. There are currently 225 clinical trials active at Peter Mac. We are frequently the first site in Australia to recruit patients for international first-in-human clinical trials, and trials commonly involve new cancer therapeutics, but also examine new approaches to surgery, radiation therapy, supportive care, pain control, and better ways to detect the spread of cancer. During the year, we increased our clinical trials by accessing a flexing up of our 4 additional beds in the Part 4 Cancer Clinical Trials Unit, which supports that expansion. At this point, I wanted to acknowledge some of our award recipients, and I think I might have had that slide is up already, but this year I wanted to acknowledge that Professor Joe Trapani and Professor David Botel were elected Fellows of the Australian Academy of Science in 2018. This is elected by their peers for outstanding contribution to science and scientific research. So a massive congratulations to both Joe and David for that acknowledgement. So we also have Peter Mac researchers Dr. Benjamin T and Gabrielle Hassler, who were presented with the 2018 Premier's Award for Excellence in Health and Medical Research. Dr. Hassler won the Health Services Research category for her work in improving research and care of febrile neutropenia in childhood cancer patients. And Dr. T won the Clinical Research category for his work to improve the care of infections in patients with multiple myeloma treated with new generation therapies. Well done to both of you. We also have Peter Mac clinician researchers, Dr. Marlise Alexander, Dr. Elizabeth Pearson, Dr. Gabrielle Hassler again, and Dr. Lisa Gretsch. This year received 4 out of the 5 Victorian Cancer Agency fellowship grants awarded by the Minister for Health. And I wanted to note that all 5 of the recipients were women, so that's a fantastic achievement for women in science. This year, let's give that out. It deserves it. This year, we continue to break new ground in areas taking full advantage of our expanded clinical trials capacity and within the Part 4 precinct. Peter Mac, in collaboration with WeHi, announced new applications of breakthrough immunotherapy drug venetoclax, making a shift in the treatment of a range of blood cancers. The trials, led by Professor John Seymour and Associate Professor Constantine Tam, used venetoclax in combination with another targeted drug and showed remarkably high rates of clinical responses. A Peter Mac clinical trial in stereotactic ablative body radiotherapy, led by Associate Professor Shankar Siva, used a highly advanced single-dose radiotherapy treatment, which has halted the spread of prostate cancer in some men, while also delaying the need for conventional lifelong hormone therapy. A fantastic trial. Then we have another award, which is an image. The image that demonstrates the dramatic before and after effect of LU-PSMA therapy has been declared an Image of the Year by the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging. The image was a compilation of scans from 8 Peter Mac patients created by Professor Michael Hoffman, who you can see there, and his research team as part of the Peter Mac-sponsored Phase 2 single-arm study. Then we have a Peter Mac-led trial of anti-PDI therapy drug Semepilab, probably pronounced that not quite correctly, showed response in almost 50% of patients for previously incurable skin cancers. And this was led by Danny Rishan, and the trial showed significant cancer reduction in 29 of 59 patients, remembering that these patients were all previously incurable. So throughout the year, many staff were honoured for their exceptional individual talent and achievements with awards, grants and publications, with more than 600 research articles published in prestigious journals. And also I wanted to acknowledge again the annual winners of the Lear Award for Emerging Scientists, which is Marlise Alexander and Elaine Sanich. Finally, I wanted to acknowledge an award given to our Peter Mac volunteer, Samuel Simons. Samuel was awarded the Outstanding Achievement by a Young Volunteer Award from the Minister for Health earlier this year. Samuel was recognised for his contribution to treatment tailored to the unique needs of young people living with cancer. Many of you know Simon, and he began volunteering at Peter Mac 6 years ago, initially on the Victorian and Tasmanian Youth Cancer Advisory Board, and then the Peter Mac Community Advisory Committee when he turned 25. He advised on the design of the Melbourne Youth Cancer Centre at Peter Mac's new building, and also contributed to awareness and education programs for healthcare professionals across the adult and paediatric oncology sectors. Sad to say that Samuel passed away last month, and we remember him and we remember everybody who has died from cancer over the past year, and it certainly reminds us all of how much work there is to do and how much more research there is to do to save people like Samuel. And finally, an update on our partnerships and networks, which is an important part of what Peter Mac does, and we want to collaborate with as many institutes as we can. And in May this year, Elaine Sanage visited Dana-Farber Cancer Centre to work with the world leaders in DNA repair therapies in ovarian cancer. A delegation of radiation oncologists from Fudan visited Peter Mac to participate in our SABR symposium, a multidisciplinary teaching program for radiation therapy and radiation oncology. And finally, we signed an MOU with Swinburne University on a program of collaborative projects, including the development of the new digital health CRC, as well as a potential access to their $4 million supercomputer to support our data management. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the vital role of our donors and supporters and what they have allowed us to achieve in the past year. In the past year, the Peter Mac Foundation and all the people and the members of the public that support the foundation have contributed over $34 million to support cancer research at Peter Mac. This is an incredibly significant support for the research that we do. Over 100,000 members of the community have engaged with the foundation's fundraising efforts throughout the year, and we are looking forward to the foundation's major fundraising event for this year, which is Unite to Fight Cancer Ride, Run or Walk, which is next Sunday, the 28th of October. So thank you to the generous support of the public that helps us do what we do. I also want to take a moment to tell you about the important work of the partners in our work, our consumers and our volunteers. By listening and talking to each other, we can now learn about experiences and expectations, gain input and advice from those that use or could use our services, and it helps us understand how well we are tracking and what we can do to improve. And that's a photo of a volunteer function from earlier this year. We have more than 50 consumer reps who play an active role in decisions about our services and formally as part of our Consumer Advisory Committee. We're also really fortunate to have more than 500 volunteers, people who generously donate their time, their care and their skills to Peter Mac and play a really important role in supporting our patients. So I finish by saying, we continue to be guided by our strategy and our vision. We are caring for an increasing number of patients, as Nicole has articulated, and providing the best in cancer care, accelerating discovery and translating to cures. That is our vision. We continue to work to improve our clinical research, operational and leadership practices to the benefit of all cancer patients. And finally, some of our key areas of focus, and I know Nicole's covered a lot of it, but I wanted to say that in providing the world's best cancer care, which is one of our key pillars, is focusing on how we measure patient outcomes, and that's a really important part of what we do. And we can't do that without the world's best cancer workforce. And I want to acknowledge all of our staff and that we do focus on your well-being and support you. And also our pillar for advanced technology and infrastructure. And Nicole has mentioned this, but the government has invested a significant amount of funds to support the implementation of the EMR across the entire precinct. And I think this is an incredibly important project for Peter Mac because it's going to really allow us to reach our full potential in terms of patient outcomes and also the research capacity of the EMR is going to be very, very significant. So when I address you next year, we'll still have a year to go, so it is a very, very long project, but it is going to be exceptionally worthwhile. So I don't think I've got an annual report right in front of me, but I wanted to finish by saying I'm pleased to present to you the Peter Mac annual report, which is available in hard copy here, or it's obviously online, and it contains information that we've just articulated, both Nicole and I recommend it to you. So I'm going to finish there, but I'll be back to speak to and make the award presentations. But right now, I want to introduce you to our special guest and introduce Steve Allen to you, who will come up after the video to introduce the panel. So firstly, our special guest is Tony Thorne. And Tony Thorne has flown over from Tasmania to be here today. And as you will see, he has more than 20 years' experience in animation, primarily characters and creatures for both film and television. And during his treatment, he's put his artistic skills to good use in drawing a journal over his 100 days of treatment. And I think we're now going to watch a video, and then Steve Allen, our Director of Psycho-Oncology, will invite the panel members to participate in a discussion. So over to the video. Should I press something? Yep, okay.
wow, we did get to see a lot of the journal then. You probably didn't get to read very much of it. But I'll just give you a bit of a background beyond this. So obviously there was a lead up to this. So at Easter 2016, I was lifting some heavy weights at our holiday house and injured my hip, and I've had a similar injury before. I wasn't particularly concerned about it. But the injury over the course of the next 9 months got worse, and I found it very difficult to run, and walking got harder and harder. My doctor was baffled, my physiotherapist was baffled. I had an X-ray in July, it showed nothing. And then I was working very hard. So my day job is a director and designer of an animated kids TV show, Little J and Big Cuz. And I do that out of Hobart, but it's a national project. So my connections to Tasmania are pretty strong, but I really have worked nationally and internationally doing animation work. But I was very busy and I was getting sick. And one of the things they wanted to do to try and solve that problem was an injection into my sacroiliac joint of cortisone. This is a CT-guided injection. And that CT scan revealed many lesions in my bones, and that was diagnosis of myeloma. And that was the 8th of December 2016. I'd never heard of myeloma. So it was a very steep learning curve for me, and it was a real change in my life, as it would be for anyone. But and because it happened just before Christmas, there were many questions that I couldn't talk to anyone, all perfectly normal. So I was lucky enough to have a lot of support around me, and a great team at the Royal Hobart Hospital. So, and they gradually fed me things, and in terms of information, and they kind of held back on what was going on. So that I knew that I was going to get chemo, and I knew that I would then have an autologous transplant. And then they started asking, so have you got any brothers and sisters? And I did, and I kind of knew what that meant. So, or I was learning that would mean an allogeneic transplant, probably. So, at one point, they explained to me that I had this particular cytogenetic disorder, which was 17p deletion, and your GP tells you not to Google things, but you do, and so you understand that means you've probably got the most aggressive form of this disease. And in fact, the registrar at the Royal Hobart said, you're doomed within a year without this treatment. So, he was very, very, very honest, and I appreciated that honesty. And about that time I met David Ritchie, and he said, you up for this? Are you going to do the allogeneic transplant? And I was also lucky enough to have 3 genetic sibling matches, which means mum's an honest woman. So we picked one of them, and that was my sister. And luckily all the ducks lined up. So I kind of went through. I did have a grander plan beyond the journal to record all of my treatment, but I was busy. I was still finishing Series 1 of Little J and Big Cuz as treatment was happening, as chemo was happening, and just before I went into the allogeneic transplant. So I missed the local launch of Series 1 at the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre in Launceston because I was neutropenic and in hospital at the Royal Hobart. But you know, and I continued, like, so while I was on 7B, when I came here, I continued to read scripts for little Jay on the ward. So it just kept rolling on. I had a very supportive producer. But I had this idea that I wanted to do something, and I also knew that if I came to Melbourne, that there would just be a lot of time waiting around. I'd lived in Melbourne before for 6 years, so I knew the city. I liked the city a lot. So I figured I could amuse myself pretty well, but I also knew that I would be immune compromised and that I'd need to just be quiet and be still for a lot of that time. So I bought a couple of A4 moleskin sketchbooks, and I just thought I'll just do a drawing every day of something, and I'll respond to how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. And it might work, it might not, it doesn't really matter, I'll just do it. So, you know, I am someone who probably does think about an audience, so, because that's my day job. So it was probably in there somewhere, but it was really about just doing something, getting something down every day that records the progression of all of this. And I thought it might be helpful to me, and it might be helpful to other patients and maybe clinicians as well. So, you know, I've sort of ticked all the boxes pretty much along the way, so I'm doing amazingly well now. I have a little bit of graft versus host disease, but, you know, this is well past when I was supposed to be dead, so that's pretty good. And, you know, in the middle of this year, Little Jane Big Cuz was nominated for a Logie, and I was able to go to the ceremony, and we won that award. So that was... So, you know, it's a tribute to the people in this room that I was able to do that as well. So.
Thank you, Tony. Now, can I begin by inviting up the panellists, people who can... we're going to talk to a little bit about Tony's experience. So, Tony, can you jump up on one of the chairs? And can I first invite up Professor David Ritchie, who's a haematologist and head of the Allogenic Stem Cell Transplantation Service at Peter Mac and Royal Melbourne. And David was the key clinician, essentially, in Tony's treatment here in Melbourne. Also, can I invite up Belinda Steer, the Head of Nutrition and Speech Pathology. Belinda's going to add a little bit and talk about the patient experience, in particular from an allied health perspective. And finally, Jerry McDonald, who's our Director of Prevention and Wellbeing. And Jerry's recently returned from overseas, where she completed her Churchill Fellowship with a focus on understanding how patient navigators work within the US health system. I smile when I say that because I was going to crack a joke about it being a junket, but then I decided that was inappropriate at an AGM, and so I behaved myself and wouldn't make any jokes at all. Now, whilst I'm just firing up this microphone, I shall begin. In fact, I think the best place to begin is with Tony. We're going to talk about some of the sort of experiences Tony had. In particular, we want to begin by talking about dislocation. The idea that you're being treated for 100, for so long, 80 days I think it was, in Melbourne, away from your home. So why don't you kick us off while I'm firing up this and tell us a little bit about what it was like receiving care so far from home, Tony.
Well, the hardest thing for me, I'm married late. I've got a 5 and a 7-year-old, and they are pretty much my life. So I knew that was going to be really hard. I do alone pretty well. I've done it a lot of my life, and so I don't have a difficulty with that, but I knew that a lot of the burden was going to fall on my wife, and that was really hard for me. We were actually pretty well set up to do this thing, and we were, by the time we got to doing it, I think we were pretty well organised. And the staff at the Royal Melbourne on 7B and here were both very supportive of all of that. But, and Patient Transport Tasmania, who paid for my apartment here, also just made that really simple as well. So it was great.
Jerry, if you're still speaking to me. What do you do from a wellbeing perspective to try and address issues such as dislocation?
Is that on?
Yep.
So junket not paid for by Peter Mac, just saying.
It was actually, the Churchill Fellowship is a really big deal. I am stirring. Go ahead, Jerry.
So the third pillar in our strategic plan of focus on prevention and wellbeing is all about how what are the other factors that impact on your cancer care and being a patient here at Peter Mac? And loneliness is something that we see a lot. We see a lot of country patients coming down for radiotherapy, chemo, other treatments, and coming down for long periods and actually not having good connections in Melbourne and not good social supports available for them. So we see a lot of patients hanging out in our wellbeing centre, and the wellbeing centre is a great non-clinical space for our patients to either connect with other patients and families or just to spend some time out of the busyness of being a patient. So we do things like we run Carers Circle, which is a carer support group. We host dinners in the Wellbeing Centre for our country patients that are residing in the apartments. And so that's been a great initiative. And a lot of our country patients or interstate patients really look forward to those dinners.
That's great. David, from a clinical perspective, what's the impact of these big distances?
Yeah, I think the difficulty, and Tony pointed out incredibly well, we have a tension here. This precinct represents many aspects of the best cancer care in the known universe. And so there's a concentration of expertise, medical, allied health, nursing, volunteers, all of the operational staff who are critical. And allogeneic transplantation represents some of the most complex medicine in the known universe as well. And there's lots of moving parts. So we have that tension of a concentration of expertise, a place people want to come to get the best care. But similarly, in order to do that, being dislocated from all the other things that are incredibly important in their life. And Tony mentioned things that's important to him and things that's important to me. And I'm sure most people in the family is their home, their family, and their place of safety. And being dislocated to Melbourne represents a significant wrench. We try wherever possible to go to Tasmania to have those initial conversations. They're big conversations, and Tony summarised it excellently, paraphrased probably an hour and a half conversation into "Are you up for this?" which is pretty much as honest as you can get. And being up for it is not just the drugs and the medicine and the immunology and the graft versus host disease and the multiple weights and the multiple waiting rooms and the multiple clinics and the multiple legions of faces that you meet. But it's those critical things about how it would impact upon the person's other aspects of their lives. And I think some of the first questions that I ask people when we're even considering this this type of transplant, this type of complexity of medicine is, do you realise that you will be in Melbourne? Do you realise that you will be in Melbourne if everything goes swimmingly well for 100 days? And it might be longer. And do you realise that even if things go incredibly well, you will be off work for 6 months? And we get those out pretty quickly because people sort of say, well, no, I didn't realise that, and I'm not sure I'm up for it. That is too much of an ask. The payoff, the opportunity is not worth that sort of investment. And everything that we can do to try and mitigate those impacts is critical. And I think it really comes from the things that Melbourne Health Services, Peter Mac and other members of the precinct really score highly on, the ability to treat people with dignity, the understanding that they are significantly dislocated. Even if they just spend one night in a hospital, they're dislocated from their place of safety. And being acknowledging that and being sympathetic and empathetic to that and knowing the degree of trauma that they're going through, which is not just about the chemo or the radiation or the surgery, but all of those other aspects. And I think those are things that we need to continue to work on. And wherever possible, seeing people, like I did with Tony, back in Tasmania in our clinic in order to make that whole journey much more centering back to where he comes from.
Thank you. Just before we move on, related to dislocation, you're also an Aboriginal man, and obviously you've got a badge. How did that impact on your experience at Peter Mac?
Oh, well, I'm about as Tasmanian as you can get. So descended from Aboriginal people and convicts on mum's side, and tin miners from the west coast of Tasmania on my dad's side. It was really, and my connections to Tasmania in the last 10 years, I mean, I did move away and I've lived in London and done lots of other things, but in a weird way, colonisation sort of brought me back to Tasmania, and so those connections now, particularly with my extended Aboriginal family, are strong, and they make me want to be there. My holiday house is where Manalagenna lived, so he's my, the significant sort of ancestor of many people in Tasmania. So it's just kind of, I couldn't be there. I couldn't be at that place. So that was hard. Really hard.
I know you've done a lot of work, Jerry, but I want to go to around cultural safety and in particular safety audits at Peter Mac. But I want to ask Belinda, as a clinician, as an allied health clinician in particular, what is the impact of culture? How do you think about it as a clinician and addressing culture in the context of your care?
Yeah, I think it's something that we have to consider with every patient that we see. We have to look at them as a whole, and culture is a really important thing. It can impact on what we're asking of someone, the interventions that they're going to carry out, or perhaps they're not, how we interact with them, how they interact with us. And for an allied health clinician in particular, we really need patient engagement. We need them to build rapport with us and understand what we want them to do and be able to do that. And if we can't tap into their culture and understand how we can work with that and work together as a team, we can't achieve the best outcomes. So I think it's something that with every person we see, we really need to consider their culture, no matter what that might be.
And I think some of those things will be cultural, and some of them will be predisposition. So people will have, I do want to know the science, but not everybody does. So, just those things really make a difference. And that's across cultures as well. So all of those things impact.
Can I go back to David for a minute? Because I want to, carrying on from the theme of dislocation, and you mentioned the tyranny of distance. We also have, I don't know whether we call them campi or campuses, and really I should know by now, but I don't. We also work across multiple campuses. You also work in Hobart. How do you bring all the different services like Royal Melbourne and Peter Mac together to make it a smooth process for the person in the middle, the patient?
I don't know if we have time for that answer.
I know. Look, I'm asking you possibly long questions, so apologies.
But I'll give you my personal biases here. Not making a patient feel like a visitor wherever they are. I think if we keep that at the centre of our communications and of our approach to patient care, there are differences, process, policy, cultural differences between different institutions. But if we are brave enough and dedicated enough to put those aside for the good of our patients, then we will do a good job. And Tony had to learn some of the culture, not only of coming back to Melbourne, but the culture of different institutions, and that is really true. There's a certain buzz, there's a certain mechanism, there's a certain way of doing things in different institutions, and patients have to learn that. We're trying, and one of the things that Nicole highlighted is some of the substantial work that we've done within haematology to try and limit those seams, if you like. We've stitched together a service, and we have tried to minimise the size of those seams, perhaps by restitching some, ironing some out, perhaps removing others, and to try and make it as seamless as possible is really what we need to do. And that's true too for the communication that we have for the more distant sites, the satellite sites. We run clinics of various descriptions, Geelong, Launceston, Hobart. Peter Mac, of course, has a long and proud tradition of having centres, and you heard some of those from Maxine, the satellite sites for Peter Mac, and open lines of clear communication. I have received a number of texts while I've been sitting here, and I can bet your bottom dollar that some of them from the haematologists in Hobart wanting to know how Tony's going, wanting wanting some advice.
Really well, text back.
Really well. And so open lines of communication being available. And as I said, this campus, this precinct does represent some of the best cancer care, some of the best research literally in the known universe. And being outward facing and being open to questions, being open to and giving of information, that's the best way that I know to make people who, like Tony, who've experienced care in lots of different parts of this massive machine, go as smoothly as possible.
Jerry, can you, I mean, again, you visited some of the best patient navigation centres and facilities in the world. What do you think we need to learn, if you can, in a couple of minutes?
Look, I think what patient navigation, so for those of you who don't know, patient navigation is it's a process that is very patient-centred. So it's all about putting the patient at the centre of care and identifying the barriers that that patient may be having in accessing or continuing care. So it's been going on for many years in the States and the UK. And of course, their health systems are different, so the drivers were different to why navigation was commenced. But basically, there are a number of areas that we could look at that could really help our patients navigate the system better and improve the patient experience. So, we talk about patient outcomes and patient experience. So, you may have a fantastic outcome but a terrible experience. And so patient navigation really is looking at the individual needs of that patient. So it might be that you have an individual navigator that helps you traverse the system. Or you may have particular areas. So you may have a financial aid navigation service, a legal navigation service, an end-of-life care navigation service. So you could have it in various themes. But I think the key point to remember about navigation is it's all about the patient. And it's thinking about things a little differently, to looking at, well, what are the barriers to helping this patient navigate through the system, which is very complex.
Okay, this is a hard one. I want to go back to you, Tony, then I want to ask Belinda her thoughts and then finish with David. And it's about listening and communication. In essence, are there any tips? What do you think about how well we listen to you, given that we've got this incredibly complex system, across multiple states, multiple campuses, et cetera, et cetera? Did you feel that there's anything we should be learning about listening and communications from your experience?
I think I felt that I was listened to very well. I'd say that first. Again, I'd go back to that thing of individual people need different things with their care, so they'll want different things. They'll want to tell you different things. For me, and it comes across in the journal, it's rereading the journal, it's so apparent that, that I was running my own race, which really wasn't about I wasn't thinking long term. I was thinking, get home. I want to get home. And, and I think probably the thing I wasn't prepared for was cyclosporin, the drug. But the great thing, and I think this comes back to people, and the science is fantastic. And when you're diagnosed with cancer, that in itself is an incredibly disempowering thing. That is I remember over the Christmas of 2016 when I was losing a kilogram a day, and I was just I was really sick, and I had this huge lump on my hip, and I was like, this is dying. This is what dying is. And so there's that, and then you have to accept treatment. And then gradually you go, there are options, and maybe we can get through this thing, and that is as much science as it is people. So when I would go through the pain of cyclosporin and why are we not reducing this drug, and because I don't really know what the rules are about it. It's complex. It's really complex, as David says. And, it's keeping me alive, which, that's not what you're really thinking. You're thinking, it's killing me, this immune suppression. And I would ring Rosie in Hobart, so my haematologist at the Royal Hobart. And that was kind of a great way just to keep me sort of scientifically sort of on track. Like, no, this is right. You just go with it. You know, there's a reason why this is happening. And it was a great check. So I was probably very lucky that I felt comfortable enough to do that. But I think that she listened. She would pick up the phone and she would listen to me was, a couple of times. It just meant everything stayed on the rails.
I love it.
And I hear stories of it going off the rails, and I was so close to it. My flat looked out over the flight path to Tullamarine. So, I thought about those planes, particularly as the sun was setting, the silhouette of those planes coming in, I could just go on a Tuesday, I could just go back to Tasmania, I'll be back on Friday. No one would be any the wiser.
Well, it's very true. The science saves your lives, but the people save whatever it is, your soul. I don't know. Belinda, do you have any comments you want to make about, I think allied health people spend almost the most time talking. It's the nature of your work that you're there talking.
I'm glad you think that, Steve. I absolutely will say that I think allied health are the best listeners out there. Sorry, everyone else. But I think that's a key part of our job is listening to the patients. We actually ask, what do you want to do? What's your goals? Where do you want to get? What do you want to achieve? And it can be as simple as exercising every day. It can be as simple as maintaining my weight, as you were saying, Tony, losing weight. It can be really little things that we then work really closely with them to help them achieve those goals. It gives them some control. It helps them actually feel like they're doing something to help get to that end point that they want to get to. And I think allied health in particular, we're all great at listening, but we're really great listeners and listening to each patient individually and making sure we're taking that on board and working with that patient.
Thanks, Belinda. David, can I ask you just to wrap up and maybe comment on the lessons we learned from this complex system and the importance of the experience that Tony's gone through?
That the lesson I learn constantly is that we are, for all of the importance of the cancer care that we deliver, for all of the importance of the fantastic funding, the research funds, the machines, the buildings, we're only part of a patient's life. And the thing that drives me, particularly in haematology and allogeneic transplantation, is try and get out of that person's life as quickly as possible so that they can get back to their life. And recognising that, I think answers all of the questions, as Belinda said, what does a person want to achieve, all the things we've heard about navigation, getting through the process as cleanly and as little hassle as possible, keeping people's energy levels and mental stamina reserves in reserve, and getting them back to where they want to be, which is not in hospital. It's not sitting in a 3B waiting room. It's back in the place they come from with the people they want to be with.
Thank you. Can I ask you all to join me in thanking Tony Thorne, David Ritchie, Belinda Spear and Jerry McDonald.
It's fine, my notes. Well, thank you first of all, Tony, for providing such incredible insight into your experience, which goes some way to helping us understand what it might be like, but we can't possibly have been in your shoes. So thank you very much for sharing that and your amazing figures. Thank you also to Jerry, Belinda and David. I think you've really demonstrated how successful a team can be working across the precinct, and you've all shown amazing compassion for your care of Tony, so I thank you for that. And I thank Steve for just being Steve. Thank you, Steve. Right, now we get to the part where it's so important. Part of our AGM is where we acknowledge the great work that's been done by many different teams right across Peter Mac. So Jill's going to help me with the slides. So first of all, I wanted to bring to and I've just noticed that Christine Kilpatrick's here. Thank you for joining us, the CEO of Melbourne Health. Great to have precinct partners in the room today. So I wanted to ask David Speakman and Jack Matheson to come up to the front to be able to provide the awards for World's Best Cancer Care. So the award recognises an exceptional contribution in delivering care and supporting the total wellbeing of patients. So the first individual to be recognised goes to, it's 2 awards to 2 individuals. It's Lynette Baker and Diane Davey. So Lynette is an allied health assistant in occupational therapy and physiotherapy, and Lynette is nominated for her unwavering commitment to promoting exercise as a treatment for coping with and recovering from cancer treatments. She goes above and beyond by visiting patients daily to increase their physical activity, and her exceptional skills in building and maintaining rapport with her patients has enabled many of them to achieve improvements they did not think was possible. Lynette continually demonstrates the Peter Mac value of compassion by taking the care to address patient wishes whenever she can. This year, Lynette applied for and successfully obtained funding to replace some broken equipment, ensuring that patients could continue exercising as part of their recovery. Next is Diane Davey, who's a nurse in radiotherapy nursing and cancer research. And although Diane is only in her 4th year of nursing, she already epitomises Peter Mac's values of innovation, excellence and compassion. And Diane has been either instrumental or solely responsible for 2 nursing-led research initiatives at Peter Mac, including the INTACT trial relating to radiation reaction area care and the development of an implanted port patient education tool. She displays an infectious level of enthusiasm for innovation, specialist knowledge and evidence-based practice, and her ability to translate her learnings into actionable areas will benefit her team, Peter Mac and the patients. Is Diane here today? She's been and gone. Okay, sorry. Right, the team award for World's Best Cancer Care goes to Day Therapy Advanced Planning Team, and it's obviously a very big team. Formed in late 2017, the Day Therapy Advanced Planning Team has worked tirelessly and collaboratively across the organisation to improve patient care with excellent results. Their results have resulted in improved processes which enable greater throughput of patients whilst maintaining clinical quality and safety, as well as a reduced number of patient complaints and increased staff morale. For example, a significant outcome of their work has been a decrease in patient wait times from in excess of 45 minutes to 30 to 16 minutes, so a saving of half an hour in the wait. So the team's dedication to compassion and desire for excellence has led the team to collaborate with frontline staff and patients to deliver innovative solutions with real and sustainable improvement. The huge effort put in by Patrice and the Day Therapy team is illustrated by Day Therapy being nominated for this award 3 times by different Peter Mac employees. So well done to everybody at Day Therapy. Small things can make a big difference to patient lives. Next, Accelerate Discovery and Translational Research. I wanted to invite Professor Ricky Johnson and Rick Pearson to provide the awards. And this recognises an individual and a team for their fierce pursuit of discovery-based research excellence, allowing us to break new ground in cancer diagnosis and treatment. The individual award goes to Elizabeth Christie. Elizabeth is a postdoc in the Botel Cancer Genetics and Genomics Lab, and Elizabeth's commitment, innovation and fierce focus has driven major advances in numerous research projects. Most notably, she led a project investigating mechanisms of acquired chemoresistance in ovarian cancer. She identified a treatment likely to be effective in ovarian cancer patients with recurrent disease and developed a biomarker assay to stratify patients based on their tumour's genetic profile. This has resulted in the publication of a number of high-impact papers, 2 successful grant applications, and in partnership with Dr. Ali Fremund, a fellow Peter Mac medical oncologist and PhD student, the receipt of a $1.35 million funding for a clinical trial based on the project's findings. and this is likely to open next year and will be the first to stratify ovarian cancer patients on the basis of an acquired drug resistance mechanism. So congratulations, Elizabeth. Next, the team award goes to On Track at Peter Mac. It was established in 2004 and has made a really significant contribution in improving the care and outcomes of young people with cancer and their families during and after treatment. In upholding the Peter Mac values of innovation, excellence and compassion, the team is internationally recognised for their innovative work across a number of key areas, such as improving the health and wellbeing outcomes of young adult cancer survivors, understanding the educational outcomes of young people diagnosed with cancer, and strengthening the capacity of the cancer workforce in delivering quality youth care. This is a commitment to promoting a culture of youth participation, and the On Track service is widely recognised for making a significant contribution to ensuring that young people play a pivotal role in health policy development, service design, delivery and evaluation. Well done to everyone at the On Track team. Then we have 3 research awards. The Peter Mac Postgraduate Research Medal was established back in 1999 and is awarded annually to a PhD or medical doctorate student in recognition of their research achievements throughout their degree undertaken at Peter Mac. The selection committee determines which application demonstrates the greatest international impact on basic, translational or clinical cancer research, as judged by the research outcomes of the project, including publications, conference presentations and honours and awards received by the student. This year, the award goes to Dr. Simon Hogg. Simon undertook his research under the supervision of Professor Ricky Johnson and Associate Professor Jack Short. Simon's research investigated the therapeutic potential of a novel therapy called bromodomain inhibitors to treat aggressive blood cancers. He uncovered a novel mechanism of action for these therapies, detailing how bromodomain inhibitors can promote the immune system to attack tumours. Simon's work has resulted in significant publications and a patent that has formed the basis for clinical trial development. Clear evidence of the impact of your work, Simon. Well done. Congratulations. The 2018 Early Career Development Award was established in 2013 and is designed to help progress the awardees' research and career directions. This year, the $30,000 award goes to Dr. Simon Kim. Simon. This award will be used to progress Simon's prostate cancer research that aims to understand the potential role of genetic alterations in radioresistance development. He will use custom target capture next-generation DNA sequencing to assess the genetic basis for different responses to radiation in clinical samples to assist in discerning satisfactory and poor responses. This information will potentially generate targets and biomarkers for more effective therapies to avoid further disease. Well done. Thank you, Simon. And the final research award is the Joseph F. Sambrook Prize for Research Excellence, and this was established back in 2012 and is awarded annually to a researcher or researchers judged to have made the most important published discovery during the previous 2 calendar years. This year, the award goes to lead investigators Dean Tyler and Mark Dawson for their 2017 paper published in Science, which is one of the world's leading academic journals. And the title of the publication was Click Chemistry Enables Preclinical Evaluation of Targeted Epigenetic Therapies. The most important publication described the application of an approach called click chemistry that enables detailed characterisation of the mechanisms of action and therapeutic potential of small molecules. This highly innovative research showcased the potential of click chemistry, someone will have to explain later what that means, for characterising the molecular mechanisms by which putative drugs act, thereby enhancing their preclinical evaluation and guiding their subsequent development as therapeutics. These findings provide a very powerful tool for preclinical assessment of a specific drug framework for moving ahead with new therapies, which are very applicable to many types of epithelial cancers. Mark and Dean, please, are you there? Yeah. Congratulations, Mark, on one of your many awards received this year. Congratulations. Excellence in Cancer Prevention and Wellbeing. I'd like to invite Steve Allen to come to the stage to... Okay, the individual award goes to our manager of the Wellbeing Centre, Esther Lim. And she's... Hi, Esther. She's been nominated for her unwavering commitment to providing the best possible wellbeing experience for patients, carers and their extended networks. And visitors to the Wellbeing Centre have spoken of it as being an oasis of calm. And as the manager of this space, Esther contributes to this feeling by remembering people's names and stories and ensuring they feel comfortable, listened to and supported at an extremely vulnerable and uncertain period of their lives. She has successfully implemented a range of innovative services within the centre, including programs specifically focused on carers, culturally diverse communities, isolated rural guests and patient accommodation, and education sessions relating to supportive care. And through her innovative ideas and compassion, Esther ensures that the holistic, caring, human element of cancer care remains at the forefront of everything that she does. This is highly appreciated by carers, patients and everyone at Peter Mac. Well done, Esther. And the team award goes to the Pearl Project team. Going above and beyond their routine duties as radiation therapists, the Pearl Project team came together to address a patient need for greater information by producing educational videos for patients undergoing a course of radiation therapy. These education videos were made using an innovative software called Pearl and have provided patients and their families with a deeper understanding of radiation therapy through a highly compelling and visual environment. By having access to a higher standard of information than they previously provided, patients are empowered with a greater sense of control throughout the process and are also better equipped to cope with radiation therapy as they are undergoing planning and treatment. So well done to everybody in the Pearl Project team. The last category of awards for innovation and collaboration. I'd like to invite Helen Havenga to the stage. This recognises innovation and new business practice, partnerships or collaboration with clear benefits for Peter Mac. So the individual award goes to Jenny Lydon. Jenny is the physics lead of the new cloud-based radiotherapy treatment planning system, Eclipse. For her efforts on this project, Jenny has been nominated for the award by 3 different peers. The project team as a whole was also nominated in the Innovation and Collaboration category, so it's clear that many Peter Mac employees have been involved with or affected by this project, want to celebrate the incredible achievement. This multi-campus, multi-team project has been in safe hands with Jenny, who has managed it as much more than just a software upgrade. It has been an opportunity to fine-tune, innovate, consolidate and improve the workflow for all those who use the software and increase the quality of the service provided to patients. Jenny has inspired stakeholders to go the extra mile and think innovatively to implement the treatment planning system in the most effective way they could, future-proofing the procedures and workflow surrounding the system. Jenny is described as inspirational, approachable, respected and professional. Her peers would like to recognise her incredible ability to manage the people side of this project, which can't be underestimated, in a way that has refreshed and motivated them. So congratulations, fantastic job, Jenny. Well done. Also, I wanted to note that that new system was made possible through the support of foundation donors, a really significant investment in our radiation treatment planning system. And then the team award goes to the Research Computing Facility. The Research Computing Facility partners with international and external stakeholders to anticipate the future software needs of researchers and clinicians at Peter Mac. The team provides computational solutions with the goal of improving research discoveries and patient outcomes. Here they are. So that I'll just do a little bit more about what you've achieved. They have recently partnered with molecular pathology to support the establishment of a clinical genomics platform. This work has developed from a research project that started 8 years ago and has developed into a solution that translates bioinformatics research into a robust and reliable platform for clinical use. Peter Mac used to be able to process one gene, one patient at a time. We now sequence 2,000 clinical samples per month, a 1,000-fold improvement. The team support Peter Mac researchers to analyse and interpret data by employing bioinformatics techniques to improve research discoveries. They have established collaborations with the University of Melbourne and Swinburne University, working with astrophysics to automate image analysis of data from histology and microscopy. Peter Mac used to do this manually, with a researcher spending days at a time classifying pixels on a screen. The automation of this has dramatically improved turnaround time and quantity, and also removed variation between users and human error. So, fantastic achievement. Thank you so much. Now, the next award is for community contribution. I'm going to invite Martin Shaw. Was getting mixed up. The award recognises a member of the community or group within our community that has made an outstanding voluntary contribution to Peter Mac's activities. Now, the individual award goes to Catherine Ross. Is Catherine here? Yes, right. Catherine is one of Peter Mac Foundation's most passionate and successful supporters. Diagnosed with advanced bowel cancer at just 28, Catherine is determined to help others faced with this disease. She began her fundraising campaign with Research for Rhini, a fundraising page established to raise funds for organisations working to overcome bowel cancer. Through this page, she rallied family, friends and community to get behind her efforts and raised almost $63,000 for Peter Mac. Following this early success, Catherine then organised a black tie gala ball this year, which raised a total of $120,000, a third of which will fund cancer research at Peter Mac. So despite her diagnosis, Catherine has dedicated countless hours to her innovative and excellent fundraising efforts, and she is determined to raise as much as she can, and in doing so, giving hope to bowel cancer patients and bringing Peter Mac researchers closer to discovering cancer treatments and cures. Then the team award goes to BJ Quiltus. We have some representatives. BJ Quilters are a group of caring and compassionate women who sew amazingly beautiful quilts for Peter Mac patients. It's named in memory of a member of their sewing group, Brenda Joy, BJ, who passed away from breast cancer, and the group creates quilts to bring cancer patients and their families emotional and physical comfort. They go above and beyond as they respond to patient needs, making quilts for all ages, and in particular our paediatric patients who request superhero-themed quilts. Their work and commitment enables the creation of memories for patients' families, lifting their spirits and giving them joy, enhancing their cognitive, emotional and social wellbeing. Thank you to the BJ Quilters. Invite Lisa Dunlop to help me with the Distinction and Leadership Awards. And these awards recognise an individual and a team who have shown extraordinary leadership skills in providing support and direction to Peter Mac employees and who champion our values. The individual award goes to someone who's very well known in this room, and that is Dr. Kate Burberry. So Kate is an exemplary leader at Peter Mac. She is both a clinician and a scientist and goes above and beyond to contribute to the Peter Mac community and to national and international professional groups. Kate is a strong advocate for Peter Mac and role models our values of excellence, innovation and compassion in all of her pursuits and interactions. She inspires multidisciplinary collaboration and progress and is transparent in sharing her knowledge, driving translation of research findings into clinical practice for the benefit of patients. Kate is currently leading the expansion of telehealth to bring clinical trials to rural patients. In her leading role on the surgical thromboembolism prevention program, she drove the development and implementation and then ensured that the protocol and clinical tools are publicly available free of charge through that app. Kate is very much a team player before anything else, always lifting others up and challenging them to raise their expectations of themselves. She supports and mentors other Peter Mac employees, particularly other women working in STEM, and the respect and admiration of patients and staff alike is obvious to those who work with Kate, and this award is to celebrate her professionalism, integrity and empowerment of others. And I also want to finish by congratulating you, Kate, on your new position as Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Peter Mac. Congratulations. So this is our final award, and the team award goes to the radiotherapy PSA team. So providing the world's best cancer care requires groundbreaking discoveries and innovative practices, but importantly it also requires thousands of little unglamorous things to be done by thousands of people every day. Kelly Horner and Sapret Kaur, is that correct? Yep. Have devised a new process for disinfecting Peter Mac equipment without the risk of damaging it with ISO wipes. They consistently and proactively communicate clearly through mosaic, whiteboard updates and verbal communication to help ensure smooth patient flow in and out of the radiotherapy department. The radiotherapy PSA team shows leadership every day in the actions they take to help patients and other Peter Mac employees. They make a difference by taking pride in doing their jobs as well as they possibly can, taking patients to and from their appointments in a way that makes them feel cared for and without delays. They have a positive, proactive attitude, thoughtfulness and an attention to detail to rival any other Peter Mac employee, and they inspire those around them to be the best they can be. Well done. Thank you for your time. I've been given the job of now wrapping up, but thank you everybody, and thank you for all the staff who nominated people for these awards and all the nominees, and recognising the amazing work that you do. It's been really inspiring for, I'm sure, all of you to hear of projects and the work that are done perhaps in different parts of the organisation that you weren't aware of. There's some truly amazing things happening. And I am now going to present a thank you gift to Tony, and thank you again, Tony, for really sharing that amazing story and your amazing illustrations. So that is it for our 2018 AGM. Thank you all for being here today and participating and being inspired by what you've heard today. And there's now going to be some refreshments outside on level 7. I invite you to join me. Thank you.